Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm 27 years old, have a bachelor's degree in digital media and an associate's degree in graphic design. I live with my fiance, who is the love of my life, and have done absolutely nothing but play video games since I was 2 years old. How I'm engaged is beyond me. Whether or not me playing video games at the age of 2 was me actually playing them or me sucking on one of the handles, needless to say, video games have been a part of my life since an early age. It didn't matter how I performed in high school, I was already a disappointment. As such, there's a handful of games I would consider my favorite games ever made that I don't even remember playing for the first time. So, in this first edition of my new series I'm calling My Favorite Games, whether or not any given game is actually my favorite notwithstanding, I'm going to talk about 4 games that I do not remember playing for the first time. Well, sorta with the last one, but we'll get there when we get there. Without further ado, let's get started. When you think of video game mascots, you think of the classics. Mario, Sonic, Clown Kid. But when I think of video game mascots, I think of Tony Flippin' Hawk! Oh, I thought there would be more than that. Oddly enough, it's really hard to talk about the Birdman himself without bringing up his incredibly successful video game franchise with his name attached to it. Of course, not to undermine his decades worth of gold medals, incredible talent, unmatched charisma, and entrepreneurship, but there's an entire generation of idiots like me who owe their knowledge of Tony Hawk because of the Pro Skater series of video games. And it has always been one of my favorites. It was either Super Mario 64 or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater that was the first game I ever played. I think that debate is what caused my parents to get a divorce. Regardless though, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is a game that's ingrained into my DNA, dude. I've played through it so many times, and it's genuinely one of my all-time favorite games. I do like Thug 1 and American Wasteland more, but when it comes to classic Tony Hawk games, Pro Skater 2 and 3 do have better mechanics and better overall gameplay, and Alright, look, I just like this one, okay? Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was developed by
Neversoft, which, wasn't that the first name for Viagra? I don't...
Okay. I promise I won't play that clip every time I mention Neversoft.
This was a lie. Thomas would indeed use that clip every time he mentioned Neversoft.
Neversoft had previously made a game based off the Bruce Willis film Apocalypse. Shortly after that, the publishing company Activision approached Neversoft about making a skateboarding video game in the vein of Top Skater and Street Skater, which were popular at the time. Neversoft started developing this new skating game in a similar way to those two titles, focusing on racing to a goal. Early in development, though, they found that the linear level structure to be too linear, I guess. So they instead focused on freeform level structure and multiple goals within those levels. Neversoft also decided they wanted to attach a real-life professional skateboarder's name to the game. Now, I can only imagine that day in the office when during this meeting someone bursts in the room and proclaims, "Yo, did you just see that guy that landed the 900?" Actually, they started talking to Tony Hawk a year before he landed the 900. I just wanted to do that bit. Tony Hawk was already popular in the skating scene, so Neversoft showed the Birdman what they had, and he was so impressed that not only did he agree to use his name in the game, but he also took on an active role with the game's development, performing mocap, being an insider in the skate culture, playtesting the game himself. Tony said he wanted to make sure this would be a game that appeals to real-life skaters and be an accurate depiction of the culture. On September 29th, 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released for the PlayStation 1, and the world was never the same. Starting off, you select your character with such classic characters like Tony Hawk and other people, which includes Bob Burnquist, Kareem Campbell, Rune Gliffer, Bucky Lasek, Chad Muska, Andrew Reynolds, Jeff Rowley, Alicia Steamer, and Jamie Thomas. He was my favorite because his last name was my first name. Each skater has their own stats to start off with, but by the end of the game, they all get maxed out, so by the end of the game, it doesn't matter who you play as. It's like dying. It doesn't matter how you start. You'll just meet the same end. There are 9 levels in this game, and 6 of them you are presented with 5 goals. 2 scores to reach, one being a high score and the other being a pro score. Collect the 5 letters that spell out skate, do 5 of something else, grind 5 things, or run into 5 things, and of course, collecting the ever-elusive secret tape. Each goal will award you with a tape akin to Super Mario 64's Power Stars. Ooh, stay tuned, folks, this might come up again. Get enough tapes to unlock more levels. However, there are 3 competition levels. You have 3 heats to get the highest score possible without bailing, and by the end, you'll aim for a bronze, silver, or gold medal. You can get whichever medal to move on, but don't be a loser. Where'd the gold at?
Give me the gold. I want the gold.
And that's really it. The game really doesn't take that long to complete if you know what you're doing. Once you get every tape with one character, you unlock Officer Dick, which is just a bonus goof character who has achieved true balance. And for just beating the game with any given character, you'll unlock that character's skate video of them skating IRL. Such crusty FMVs, gotta love them pixels. Sure, it's not a long game, but man oh man is it fun to play. So you roll around at the speed of sound, and the momentum, I gotta say, still feels really good after all these years. It's not as tight as later entries, but I disagree with people who say the game is clunky. Now, I think it feels really good even today. You got a variety of flip and grab tricks you can perform along with various grinds, and this was before manuals, reverts, spine transfers, so your combos are going to be small in this game, which is probably why the score goals are laughably low here, when later on they're like, Jesus. Comboing is a major way to earn points, but you'll also want to take advantage of the gap system. Gaps are specific spaces between or above objects that'll net you extra points and combo multiplier when you complete them. I always like this bridge gap in Burnside because it glitches sometimes and gives you more than one gap. Stupid developers, now who's laughing? And we of course can't forget the special moves. Each character has their own special move you find out by reading the manual, or by Googling it now, I guess. And they take longer to perform, but golly, the points that they give are stellar. They even put the 900 in the game at the last minute since Tony Hawk had just landed it. Well, he can land it anyways. This game is so much fun to play, not just because of the gameplay, but the levels are really fun too. All 9 levels are distinct and have unique layouts. They never really get stale. The warehouse is pretty much the Green Hill Zone of the Tonyverse, with it being an easy, non-intimidating first level to ease in new players. Of course, my favorite was always the school level. It has an upper and lower half, plus a bunch of secret and out-of-the-way areas, making it the funnest level in the game to explore. The mall and downhill jam are unique since they're holdovers from the early stage in the game's development. Skate Park, Burnside, and Roswell are fun competition levels. Roswell was always the coolest to me as a kid because aliens. And downtown and San Francisco are fun city areas that have a lot of unique areas to them. Not a bad level in the bunch. And I'll even argue that the game still looks okay. It's PS1, so it's not going to upscale well on any emulator, but it's got that Metal Gear Solid retro charm to it. Well, I guess the only thing left to talk about is the unsung hero of any extreme sports game, the absolutely stellar soundtrack. Whereas later Tony Hawk games would have soundtracks with varieties of rock and hip-hop in them, Pro Skater 1 focused on one thing: punk freaking rock. Dead Kennedys, Suicidal Tendencies, Speed Dealer, Suicide Machines, Primus. Are they even punk rock? They gotta be some sort of subgenre. Every song in this game is a legendary banger, but of course there's one song that stands out above all else. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Committed by Unsane Superman My Goldfinger. Listen, okay? Listen here. Super Mario World 1-1, the Pac-Man jingle, Superman at Goldfinger, right? You feel me? Tony Hawk's Pro Skater may not be the most technically advanced game in the franchise, but it laid the groundwork for how skateboarding video games would operate going forward. There have been plenty of sequels, spin-offs, and other franchises that took the genre to new heights. And while there were skating games before this one, we wouldn't have what we have today without this game. And now we have an HD edition of, we have an HD edition of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. And I absolutely love this game. If you ever loved the franchise, you need to play it. Too bad Activision didn't love it. But even with all the sequels, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is a game that I have played since before I could remember. I've played it so many times and will play it many more times before I go grind the half pipe in the sky, or the fiery pool down below, or the single tree in the center of an endless void. The idea of making a video game seems so gargantuan to me that I would have no idea where to start, and this is at a time when I have decades of an industry that I can cross-reference. So I couldn't imagine what it must have been like back at the dawn of 3D gaming becoming the norm, creating games that frankly were like nothing that existed before. I mean, yeah, there were quote-unquote 3D games back on the SNES and Genesis and of course the arcade, that long-forgotten oasis of joy, but they were quite limited. Star Fox, Virtual Fighter, early examples of 3D graphics, but if we replace the graphics with 2D sprites, they would play roughly the same. Even games like Mario Kart and F-Zero had somewhat of a 3D element when you take into the account the whole Mode 7 thing, but again, not really 3D. No, when you really think about it, the 5th generation of gaming, this being the PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, and Nintendo 64 era, was probably the most difficult to develop for due to the fact that you got this new tech that these developers weren't used to using for home consoles. And designing a game with 3D in mind is very different from a 2D game's design. So, the fact that Nintendo was able to innovate on this new era of gaming with a game as good as Super Mario 64 is just beyond me. What was originally conceived as a Super Nintendo game using the Super FX chip to be titled Super Mario FX, moved on to be developed for the Nintendo 64. There were no 3D games to reference here, so the development time had a lot of trial and error until they got something that felt right. And boy howdy did they get it right. Going forward, so many developers were inspired by Super Mario 64 in their game's design or even just their gaming philosophy. Anywhere between the Tony Hawk devs to even people like Dan Houser of GTA fame, and Mr. Stop Asking About Half-Life 3 Gabe Newell singing this game's praises. It's really because despite it being such a new field at the time, everything Super Mario 64 set out to do, they did it right, and everyone loved this game.
In Super Mario 64, you can do just about anything. It is, in fact, like jumping into the movie Toy Story.
How about now? Is it still one of the greatest games of all time? Well, greatest is stretching it, but goddamn if it's not still one of the better held up early 3D games of its era. Like I said before, this may or may not be the first game I ever played. My mom got custody of me, so I should believe her, but who really knows? Point is, I've been playing this game for almost as long as I've been alive, so I am an expert on it.
That was bullshit. Oh, what the fuck? For fuck's sake, Mario.
I was holding A!
My fucking ass is what it is. Fucking camera could fucking work with me in this fucking. No! For fuck's sake! You have to be fucking. Oh my fucking god!
Mario's dead. That being said, I can say for all the time that has passed that this game controls well, though it can feel a tad bit clunky at times. Mostly with the turning, that arc that can come from a wide turn really can mess you up on a narrow walkway, but once you get a feel for it, it's not that hard to work around. Other than that, the movement in this game still feels really good. You get such a sense of freedom of movement with a bunch of different options. Long jumps, slides, backflips. I don't know if Mario was seen as acrobatic before this game's release, but he's a regular ninja warrior here. The real clunky thing here is this damn camera. You just can't get it to be in the right position sometimes. This was way before dual sticks and free roaming cameras, so it just sort of snaps to different angles. And yeah, you get a lot of options as to where to put the camera, like right behind Mario's head or real far away. See, they have this Lakitu fly in at the beginning, and this is the explanation for the camera movement in the game. Lakitu is just bad at his job. I saw this dumb fan theory that says, Mario 64 is from Bowser's perspective watching Lakitu's live camera feed, and that's why Bowser always laughs when you die. Other than there being less than no point for this theory, how do you explain when Bowser shows up on screen? Is this a fake Bowser? Then what about the last fight? This is like those stupid SpongeBob Krabby Patty fan theories. Yes, I'm sure it's either Crabmeat or Pearl's mom. My childhood certainly has been ruined, white podcast man. Your goal in Mario 64 is to explore each level collecting power stars to open up more levels until you eventually square off with Bowser, who's watching the camera feed apparently, and once you beat him, you get a key to go to another area. Rinse and repeat until you beat Bowser one last time and rescue the princess. Sounds standard, and that's because it is. But this game sort of pioneered a lot of these standard tropes, and thankfully each level is unique and full of fun challenges. Every level has 7 power stars with 120 in total. You have some absolutely classic levels like the desert, a water level everyone skips, upstate New York, and of course the Vietnam War. I actually always really like the way that the levels are designed in this game. Of course, a lot of them are like open-ended playgrounds for you to search for goals and complete, but then you get maze-like settings like Hazy Maze Cave. No, stop. We are not talking about parallel universes. I like the mountain-based levels a lot, though. Whomp's Fortress is a classic, and Cool Mountain being a reverse-design mountain is really fun, too. Aside from the levels, there are also a lot of secrets to find, which tend to be single-challenge short levels, like Princess Peach's Secret Slide. Yahoo! Oh man, I forgot about the power-up caps. Sort of like you would in Super Mario World, you can press these big buttons hidden in the world to activate these boxes that hold a special cap. There's a flight cap, which I'm assuming was the one that they really wanted to push since it's on the box art. The invisibility cap, which sucks. And then the metal cap. That's metal AF, bro. Okay, the music in Mario 64 is top-notch. It doesn't matter which level we're at, each one is insanely catchy and memorable. Yeah, despite my joke earlier, this has got to be the greatest water level theme in all of gaming. Super Mario 64 may not be the most impressive nowadays when compared to modern titles like Mario Odyssey, but even as the formula evolves, 64 still has a unique feel to it that's almost like a time capsule to what was once a new and exciting time for games, both for the developers and the players. And shoot, look at the Super Mario 64 speedrunning community. This game has been wrung out for every little secret and glitch to make runs last less than 10 freaking minutes. People have made careers off of playing this game. Hell, they got dudes doing it with drum sets now, so no matter what new Mario game comes out next, we will still have new Mario 64 speedruns to look forward to. As for me, I'm content with this being a game I come back to time after time just to relive what was once the beginning of my favorite pastime. Or second beginning. I still don't know which was first.
Here we go! Listen, everybody. Let's bake a delicious cake for Mario.
Say what you will about Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, and the internet certainly has, but when I was a kid, I didn't really love it, but it has lightsabers in the first few minutes and funny goongas, so I watched the first half a lot. Looking back on it though, it is a pretty bad film. But, silver lining, it's got a pretty good video game adaptation. Not that one, which is currently available on the $160 PlayStation Plus subscription along with Thrillville and Up the Video Game. Totally aren't 1 million better games that could be on there! No, I'm talking about the other one based off the pod racing scene from Star Wars Episode 1, called Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. Yeah, now that's some prime licensed N64 polygons. So LucasArts, known for a lot of PC games back in the 90s, had to develop a whole game based off a short segment from The Phantom Menace. You can just imagine what kind of crazy racing games set in the Star Wars universe would be like. Blasters, lightsabers, lightspeed racing. According to John Knowles, the project lead for Episode 1 Racer, the goal was to make it feel like an eyeball-peeling racing game where you're going so fast you're just nervous. Yeah, this is on the same console that had F-Zero X a year earlier. Honestly though, I'm making fun of Pod Racer too much though because it is a fun game. It's just funny how you'd expect it to be more arcadey than this, but it's not, kinda. It's almost as if this is a video game of pod racing that they would have in the Star Wars universe. It's a borderline simulator. The game has no items or environmental assets to use aside from shortcuts. No drift boosting either. It's all about finding the optimal pathway and not crashing. The only real mechanic you have to use to your advantage is a boost that you can use in a straightaway, which will make you go fast but cause your engines to overheat. You can repair your engines, but it will slow you down, so you gotta time everything just right. Once you get the idea of how the game is supposed to be played, some of the later stages can be pretty intense. I mean, it's still no F-Zero X. That game's a fucking roller coaster on Adderall, but you know, it's still fun. Select from one of many classic Star Wars characters like Anakin Skywalker, Odie Mandrell, Dud Bolt, Elon Musk, Sebulba, eventually, I think he's a late game unlock, and you race through different stages. Yeah, this isn't like Mario Kart where you select a cup, but each race is its own stage. Once you medal in a stage, you move on to the next one. And that's the game. Your only real goals are to win and upgrade your ship parts at Watto's shop, the best character introduced in Episode 1.
Welcome to Watto's shop, huh?
Hey, I'm Watto! I swear I'm not a racist stereotype!
They come here, how do they find me? They come here, they mess up my store, hey!
There are a good variety of locations. Of course, it does the classic Star Wars thing and have the place that looks like a location from the original trilogy, but isn't. Like, we have not Cloud City, not Endor, not Hoth. They do reuse a lot of them for different track layouts, but I think there's enough variety so none of them get tiresome at all. Of course, Tatooine is the first stage based straight off the scene from the movie, and it's boring as hell. The only thing I really don't like about this game is that even though it does represent this era of Star Wars quite well, it lacks personality. So I guess it represents this era of Star Wars quite well. I mean, we got our boy Greg Proops announcing the races, so that's something.
The current record holder for this track is Sebulba.
But there's not really much else other than Watto's little cantina jingle at the end of the races. Fun fact, the cantina music is a special type of space jazz, which is referred to as jizz. You see, it's a space music, so it's gotta have a name that's not jazz, but it's jizz. The Goongas love it. I don't care if they ran that back, it'll always be jizz till the end of time. Starkiller is Darth Icky too. Oddly enough, there are cutscenes between your selected racer and the current racer's running champ, but you have to hold R when selecting a race to see them. Don't know why these are hidden.
Nubi una tirasa, rookie poodoo.
I can run faster than your pod racer.
Oh, that's why. They all only have one line of dialogue no matter what side they're on? This was clearly going to be something more, but was probably cut to meet a deadline. But hey, at least they kept it instead of removing it entirely, even if it's kind of nothing.
Tuikapoda tachi lisi junkie. Kako crispa.
While I grew up on the N64 version of the game, there also was a version for Windows released the same year, and a year later a version was released for the Sega Dreamcast. This version of the game includes FMVs, cleaner graphics, and smoother gameplay.
Our couplings are being activated. Our glorious host, Jabba the Hutt, has moved into the arena.
Faster too. I mean, this game actually looks like a fast eyeball-peeling racer that makes you feel nervous. This is 100% the definitive version of Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. And believe it or not, it's available on all current hardware. Why you would want to play this game in the year 2024 is between you and your therapist, but if you got an urge to play this game at all, it's good for a fun time. But why did I play the N64 version of this game instead of the far better version? Mind your own business, that's why.
Fastest pod racer in the galaxy. Anakin Skywalker.
Alright, so the premise of the video are games that I don't remember playing for the first time. They're the games that always were. However, I'm gonna cheat with this last entry mainly because I want to talk about it. But to be fair, the memory I have of playing it for the first time is very, very vague. I must have been like 3 or 4 maybe. I'm sitting on the floor, Christmas tree on my left, and there's a big CRT and a TV stand in front of me. To my right is my dad holding a PS1 controller, and what is he playing? Well, a game I had just received as a gift a few hours ago. My first fighting game I ever got to play and considered to be one of the best fighting games of all time, Tekken 3. That intro fucks harder than anything on this planet. Released in 1998, Tekken 3 is the third Tekken game. Whoa! This is also notable for being the first directing job of the legend Katsuhiro Don't Ask Me for Shit Harada, who also voices Law throughout Tekken's history. Of course, there are 2 other directors, Masamichi Abe and Yutaka Konoe, but they don't have Wikipedia pages and don't have memes associated with them. Tekken was already well received as a rival to Sega's Virtua Fighter franchise, but Tekken 3 seemed to be the one that refined the Tekken formula to a near perfect degree, and literally everything about this game is just fantastic. Gameplay, characters, designs, music, graphics, the endings, and this opening cutscene, my god, this is one of the hypest intros to any fighting games I've ever played. I mean, PS1 CGI was usually kinda absolutely terrifying, but here in Tekken 3, it just looks good. Like, really, really good. Like, damn, that's an old man. Tekken 3 features 21 different characters, being a mix of old and new. 11 of the characters are returning, though only 6 of them are truly returning fighters, as 4 of the returning fighters, Law, King, Jack, and Kuma, are successors to their previous fighters. Law and Kuma are actually the sons of their respective previous fighters by the same names. King is the second wrestler with that name, and Gunjack is the new Jack model of this game, though his ending does show Jack 2 from the previous game having its consciousness uploaded to it. One thing to note is that while not having the same name, Julia Chang is the daughter of the previous fighter Michelle Chang. She fights pretty much the same, so she's basically a returning fighter in all but name. Anyways, the rest of the cast are new characters that will be classics throughout the rest of the series. Amongst them, we got Eddie Gordo, Harang, Huaom, Haorang, Ling Xiaoyu, and the new series protagonist Jin Kazama, who pretty much plays like Kazuya from the previous game, so, he's the son of Kazuya Mishima and Jun Kazama, whereas Kazuya turned out to be an evil edgelord and got himself yeeted into the volcano by his father, Heihachi. Jin is a true paragon who will do no wrong. Everyone has their favorites, and yeah, I'm pretty basic and play as the Mishima-style characters like Jin and Kazuya in these games, but there's a ton of characters in this game who all play wholly unique. Every time you complete arcade mode, you unlock a new character. Pretty basic compared to Tekken 2, where you gotta do a bunch of specific stuff for some of the secret characters, but it was always fun to see who would show up next. Secret characters like Brian Fury, a cyborg with that laugh. Yeah, that's the stuff. And the final boss, Ogre, and his second form, True Ogre, the god of fighting. He's the easiest boss in the series so far. The first form could be a bit of a problem sometimes, but his second form is just nothing.
Round 2, fight.
But what if you aren't sure who you want to play as? Well, you could just hit random, or you could play as Mokujin, the wooden figure who takes on the fighting style of a random character every round. I absolutely love this idea. Unfortunately, it's not very viable for professional play, so this character type has been lost to time, but I like him. So what about the gameplay so fun? Well, it's probably the fast-paced momentum every match can build up and extensive combo systems and movesets. Everything flows so nicely in Tekken 3. I dare say there hadn't been a fighting game this smooth when it came out. Every character has a wide range of moves and combos to learn, different stances or string of combos and grabs. Some characters even have super powerful hits with long windups, but the damage output is just perfect. Jesus. The gameplay is so nice that while fighting modes like arcade and versus are the focus of the game, there are 2 bonus modes that have completely different structures compared to the standard modes. Tekken Ball, which is a volleyball fighting game hybrid where you have to attack the ball so it flies and hits your opponent to deal damage. This being how you unlock the guest/joke character Gon, who's a manga character that is kinda not fun to fight. He's like the Soul Calibur 4 Yoda of this game, except he farts. And then we have Tekken Force, turning a really tight 3D fighter into a kinda clunky but fun 3D brawler. You fight through 4 stages, each with increasingly powerful enemies that you auto-lock onto since you still move like you do in the main game, so it feels very stiff and weird to move around. But it's fine. At the end of each stage, you fight a main character up until the last stage where you fight Heihachi, and then you win. You get a key every time you beat the game, get 4 keys, and you'll unlock one final character. I did not do this because I'm too lazy, so what did I do instead? Okay, so on the PlayStation Underground Jam-Pack Winter 98 demo discs, there are save data files you can download onto your memory card, including data for Tekken 3 to have literally everything unlocked. What a fun idea. And voila, you have everything in an instant. Why did I wait to the last character to do that? And the final character is Dr. Boskanovich, a joke character. He's just... Ugh.
You win.
Like, I get it, he's sort of a weird, goofy version of a stance character, and, like, he has stuff. But for the love of God, he falls down so easily with some of the moves you do, and he doesn't get up like other characters. Like, just stand up, goddammit! Well, at least he's got a cool theme.
Round 2, fight!
Yeah, that was the best segue to talking about the music I had, but oh my god, the music in this game! Not only do we have a fan-freaking-tastic arranged soundtrack for the console port, but it includes the original arcade soundtrack as well, and both are awesome! Hey, 2 Mellow fans, does this sound familiar? And lastly, how about those endings? As I said before, this is the first Tekken game to have cinematics that just look good. Like, really, really good. Especially Mokujin's ending, like, why does it look like that? What? Sure, the characters still move kinda stiff, but you can tell that they really wanted to put the time and effort into making the CGI look as impressive as they could. Except for Xiaoyu's ending, which is in an anime style, which is also cool to just have a different art style for one of these endings. Tekken 3 is just amazing. Is it the best Tekken game?
Come on.
Yes. Okay, maybe not the best. Many consider Tekken 5 to be the pinnacle of the series. And with how tight modern Tekken games are compared to Tekken 3, saying 3 is the best is a bit of a stretch. But I won't pretend that this isn't a fantastic game that is still worth picking up every now and then. Every time I get to visit my dad and my brothers, we always pump some time into Tekken 3 specifically. And it's always a blast. As if I'm back to being a kid before I had to worry about bills and student loans and my parents' divorce. I may prefer playing later Tekken games, but I'll always go back to Tekken 3. It may not be the best anymore, but it feels like it once was.